Ugly, a memoir by Robert Hogue, Chapter 9, Names People Play. The first nickname I got at school came not from my classmates, but from Catherine. One day in grade 1, Mom arrived to pick us up after school. When I reached the car, I was frowning and grumpy. I was carrying my gray jumper rolled up and at arm's length in front of me. Mom was on the case right away. "What happened?" she asked as Catherine and I hopped into the car. I told her the story. We were in class singing, and one of the other boys, who must not have been feeling at all well, vomited on me. I was upset because it had smelled bad, and I was worried that Mom would be cranky because my school clothes were messy. Catherine laughed. "Ha ha," she said, "spewed on, spewed on, spewed on." I scrunched my face up and almost started to cry. "Stop it," I shouted at her. "Stop it." It didn't work. Mom intervened, but it was too late. I had been spewed on at school, and now I was spewed on at home, too. It didn't last long, and luckily didn't go much further than my family. Plus, our school jumper was pretty ugly to start with. Have you ever sat on the beach and watched the tide come in? You might not notice the water rising as one wave follows another, but if you wait half an hour, the dry patch you were sitting on is in danger of being overtaken by water. That's what it was like for me at school. The change was gradual, but by the time I was 7, I had started to notice a difference in the way some of my classmates treated me. It's not far from the first gentle wave of genuine interest and curiosity to a crashing tide of teasing and meanness. The first incident that sticks in my mind was a playground fall. The grounds of our elementary school were quite small. We had plenty of shade under one of the old wooden buildings to eat lunch, but there were no grassy areas for kids to play on during lunch. Each lunchtime, though, a few hundred screaming kids would brave their knees and elbows against the asphalt. Most of the time I'd play in the dirt surrounding the trees that pushed their way through the hard surface of the playground. I'd play with matchbox cars or the occasional marble that I'd brought from home. One day, however, I was running around madly with the other kids. While I couldn't keep up with them for long, I could manage after a fashion. And what I lacked in speed and maneuverability, I made up for in enthusiasm. We were playing the schoolyard game of brandy, tag with a tennis ball. It involved throwing the ball as hard as you could at one of the other players, hopefully leaving a lush red mark on some painful but visible part of their body. I was up and had the tennis ball gripped tightly in one hand. A group of boys were staying just out of range, knowing they could outrun me if they needed to, but that didn't stop me. I took off with all the speed I could muster, trying to get as close to them as possible before I threw the ball. I ran across the asphalt, which sloped toward the corner of one of the buildings. As I skidded around the corner, something happened. I felt my right leg slip from beneath me. On my way down, I managed to throw the ball into the general direction of the other boys. Luckily, I fell forward onto my hands, which still hurt, especially on the hot asphalt, but there was no real damage done. When I looked up to see if my throw had hit its target, the group I was chasing was standing there laughing at me. I probably would have done the same thing, but then one of the boys pointed at me. "Ha ha! Look at the cripple!" he said. I didn't know exactly what a cripple was, but I was pretty sure, even at that age, that I didn't like it. Some of the others in the group started up too, like noisy kookaburras at sunset. "Cripple, cripple, cripple!" they shouted. I picked myself up off the ground and hid from them for the rest of lunch. But when I got back to class, some of the kids were still calling me cripple. When I got home, I had an afternoon snack and switched on the television. Having attended to these priorities, I turned to Mom. "Mom, what does cripple mean?" "It's someone whose legs don't work properly," she said. "Like me?" I asked. Mom paused. "Well, yes, sort of like you," she said. "Why? Was someone calling you names at school?" I didn't realize it at the time, but this was a turning point. It didn't come with a fanfare of angels blowing trumpets, and I didn't reflect on it right away. It just happened. I decided to protect Mom from the truth. Mom asked her question again, and I just kind of shrugged and half grinned to hide my embarrassment. "No, I just heard someone say it the other day," I said. "That's all." I'm sure my parents could guess every now and then from my mood or from a stray comment by one of my friends, but I never came out and told them about being teased at school. They had enough to deal with, and more than that, being teased made me feel somehow weak, useless, as if it was my fault. as if I deserved it, as if I hadn't been brave enough to fight it. I couldn't help how I looked or what had happened to me since I was born, but I sure as heck could control how I dealt with people teasing me about it. And my first response was to hide it all away, bury it. By the time I was 7, the teasing and name-calling did start me thinking more about exactly why I was the way I was. My parents had never told me why, beyond saying I was born that way. So on a drive home one day, I asked Mom a few questions about it. "Mom, when I was a baby, did you have a disease or something?" I asked. "No, I don't think so," Mom said. "Why?" "Well then, why are my legs all broken?" Mom explained that it was because of some medicine she was taking when I was in her tummy, before she knew she was going to have another baby. She'd been feeling sad and the medicine was supposed to make her feel better. Instead, it helped unmake parts of me. Close to home, we passed a gas station that had a small statue out front that looked like a seagull over a fountain. The Wishing Well of Wynnum. "Mom, if I put some coins in there, would my special wish come true?" Mom paused. "What would your special wish be?" "I'd wish I could buy about 16 blocks of land and build a kind of Disneyland of my own." Chapter 10. Learning to Float. I'd been banned from swimming while I was having all my operations. My doctor said the risk of getting an infection was too high. On vacation at Calandra every year, I was confined to the shallows, sitting on the sand while the water splashed over my lap. I couldn't dive, couldn't let a wave crash over my head, couldn't be taught to swim. Beached at the beach. By the time I finished grade 1, my doctors had relented and told Mom and Dad I could learn, as long as I didn't do any diving into the pool, since that might force water up my nose. In time, swimming would become a physical freedom, greater than I could ever have imagined. It was one of the few forms of exercise not entirely ruined by my disability. Swimming brought me closer to the physical level of the other children. It gave me, if not the chance to excel, at least the opportunity to compete. Most of all, swimming made me free. First, though, I had to learn how. Mom and Dad took me to Holland Swim School at Cannon Hill. The instructor did a quick assessment and said I should be able to learn to swim just fine. The next day I came back and had my first half-hour lesson. For a while I had 2 lessons a week before school, and Holland's put me through pretty much all the training they do with any kid my age. While I was learning to use my arms just fine, my legs were more or less useless and couldn't kick. My left leg was so short it didn't even have a working knee. My right leg was too short and didn't have a foot to help propel me. My arms had to do all the work to pull me along. The swim school thought I might do better if I could somehow attach a pair of flippers to my legs. Problem was, no feet to attach them to. Mom bought a set of flippers anyway and modified them so they'd fit and stay on my legs. She sewed Velcro to the flippers so they could be fastened higher up my legs and strapped with an elastic band around my waist. They were a big help and let me use my lower limbs to provide some extra momentum, but they would only stay on for a minute or so before starting to slide off. Mom tried numerous methods with little success. Then someone had the bright idea of creating a whole lower body flipper that I'd pull up over my legs and wear like shorts. I'm lucky they didn't turn me into a mermaid or merboy. The intensive classes were great because they provided one-on-one expertise. I'm sure Dad would have done a fine job teaching me how to swim, just as he had with the other kids, but I was in a hurry to learn and the extra attention was a big help. Dad and I did end up spending hours swimming at the Manly Baths and Wynnum Wading Pool and Calandra, but most of it was building on the basics I had already learned. My professional trainer, Carrie, would get cranky at me when I wasn't trying hard enough and gave me plenty of praise when I did something well. By the time I had been swimming for a month or so, I was ready for my first challenge. One day at the start of February, Carrie said, "Guess what, Robert?" "What?" "I've got a Ronald McDonald watch at home," she said. "When you can swim half the length of the pool, I'll give it to you." "Wow," I said, and I knew immediately that I must have that watch. I imagined it to be the best possible watch in the world, and when Carrie brought it to show me at my next lesson, it was just as good as I thought it would be. It had a big round face and a shiny black band, and right there in the middle was Ronald himself, red and yellow and smiling and watchy. By the end of February, it was time to try. I'd been swimming for about 8 weeks and was making fair progress. I was on my way to being drown-proofed. Well, drown-proofed if I happened to fall into a pool conveniently only wearing my swimming gear and without my heavy artificial legs on. I still had that moment of terror when I let go of the side of the pool or was released by someone holding me up in the water. Gripped by a split second of fear, realizing the only thing supporting me was the water, I'd start paddling madly to get somewhere, anywhere that didn't give me this strange feeling of falling, but not falling. The paddling would start me moving and I'd still be floating, so I'd calm down enough to realize that if I just kept going, everything would be fine. Carrie took me out to the middle of the pool and pointed me toward the side. I stayed floating, supported by her hands. "Ready?" Carrie asked. "Ready," I said. Then I was falling through the water. I started to sink, legs first, then down to my waist, before I remembered to swim. I started windmilling my arms forward, pulling myself through the water. I was swimming, all on my own. Halfway to the side, I remembered to pull my head out of the water, release the breath I'd been holding, and gulp down some more air. As I drew close to the edge, I was getting tired. As much as I wanted the shiny goodness of the Ronald McDonald watch, I felt like I didn't have the energy to make it. At about 3 feet from the edge of the pool, I stopped. "Why did you stop there?" Carrie asked. "I'm pooped," I said. "Can I have a little rest?" Carrie gave me one of those looks that said, "If you've got enough energy to stop and say you're pooped while you're treading water, you've got enough energy to finish." I kept going. When I reached the side of the pool, Carrie asked if I wanted to try again. "I'll stand in the middle of the pool, and if you can reach me, you can have the watch, okay?" "Okay." I sucked a few breaths of air in, then put my right leg straight up against the wall and pushed off to get a bit of extra speed. Then I started to swim, and in no time flat, I'd reached Carrie in the middle of the pool. "Well done, Robert," Carrie said. Mom cheered from the side. "There's one problem," Carrie said. "I didn't think you'd make it all the way today, so I didn't bring the watch down to the pool with me." My bottom lip dropped for a second until she said she'd send someone up to the house to get it. By the time I was out of the pool and had dried myself, the watch was there, bright and new and as Ronald McDonaldish as could be. Mom made me get dressed before I could put it on. I waved it around and held it in front of her face. "This is a real good watch, isn't it?" Mom nodded. She let me wear it in the car to school. When I got there, I rushed ahead to show my teacher. Sister, look what I got!" She half smiled and nodded. "You're a spoiled boy, aren't you?" "Robert, tell Sister why you got the watch," Mom said. I told Sister Marie Patrice about the swimming lesson and how I'd made it halfway across the pool without anyone helping me at all, and that I'd been given the watch as a reward. "Well, Robert, I think you deserve it then." Mom said goodbye and made me give her back the watch so I didn't lose it at school. That was kind of sad, but at least I could put it on as soon as I got home and show Dad and my brothers and sisters and tell the whole story again and again. I'd learned how to swim well enough to make it about 15 feet on my own. Now all I had to do was stop getting 1/4 past the hour and 1/4 to the hour confused and learn how to tell time properly. The Guardian Angels kids had been going to Iona regularly to swim in the pool there. Not me. Disabled by land, disabled by sea. After my success at Hollins, I asked Mom if I could start swimming with the rest of my classmates. "Please, Mom," I said. Mom talked to the teachers one morning when she dropped me off. She told them about my lessons and said Dad would come down whenever he could. The teachers told Mom they were happy for me to join the others, and she came to find me in the playground to give me the good news. When she told me, I hollered and ran to tell David. It was a small victory in the battle to be less different from everyone else.